Alright guys, today we're going to go ahead and get started on the passenger side. Getting a little bit later start today than I wanted to. Samantha and I went out for a few drinks last night and had to go pick up one of our cars, and of course we went to get us food. So getting a little bit later start. So today I'm going to aim for at least getting everything off. Hopefully get the control arms on as well. And since I've done it before, it should go a little quicker. Also, since on the driver's side I lost all the footage from taking everything off, that'll be my primary focus for this video, is to show you the process of me taking everything off. Once I go to put everything on, it'll probably be a little bit less of that stuff since you've already saw most of it on the other side. After taking off the driver's side, there's a couple things I like to do differently. There's some bolts that I'm going to unbolt while I still have it on the car because it's a lot easier to do some. So a little bit different from the driver's side that I did, but basically the same thing. But I'll go ahead and get a move on here. And so to just go over the steps I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to start off with the steering linkage, take off the knuckle from the back of the hub, because those two bolts that attach it to the hub are actually pretty hard to get off once I detach everything from the car. After that, I'm going to be taking off the inner shock and then compressing the coil to take off all the force from the control arms. And then I'll go ahead and take off the lower control arm to remove the coil. And then from there are 3 bolts that I have to reuse from the hub assembly. So I'm going to go ahead and take those off because it's easier to get them off once again while everything's still kind of on the car. And then we'll go ahead and take off the upper control arm, and then everything will come out as a whole piece. Alright guys, now it's time to take off the coil. So that means using the coil compressor. And like I said before, if you've used these before, you know it can be kind of sketchy compressing a spring. Because if this lets go, that thing goes flying. I've done this a few times before on this car and another car, so I'm kind of okay doing it, but it's still a little sketchy. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and remove the 3 bolts that I want to get out. Those 3 bolts being the one from the upper ball joint, the lower ball joint, and the nut that's under the dust cover that attaches the hub to the spindle. Because I'll reuse those on the Ridetech parts. Alright, everything is out from the passenger side now. So from here we can go ahead and start installing the lower control arm and the coilover. And as I mentioned before, I won't be showing all of the details of putting everything together. I'll mainly just be showing me installing it on the car, because in my last video I showed every step to get those Ridetech control arms and everything in. So this will be a little bit more condensed. So as you saw, I just tried to install the coilover, but there's I'm not really sure exactly what this is, some sort of washer spacer for the old shock that's in here that's actually restricting the bushing for the new coilover to go in, so I gotta figure out a way to get this out before I put the coilover in. Okay, I got it out. I ended up having to use my multi-tool, the tiny little saw on it, to cut a little slit in it, and then obviously I just banged it out and it fell through. And this is just part of the shock, the old shock that was in there. So. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for me tonight. I already had one nice knuckle buster, as you all saw. I cut my middle finger on a piece of metal. My girlfriend wrapped it up for me because it was bleeding. And I lost my T10 torque spit. That thing fell into the car, didn't hit the ground, and I couldn't find it. It'll turn up eventually, but for now it's gone. And besides, it's about 9 p.m., so I'm going to go get cleaned up, get ready for bed, and I'll hop back on this tomorrow. Alright guys, now it's Sunday. Today, the goal is to get the upper control arm in, the spindle, the hub and the rotor assembly, and the caliper. So basically get it all buttoned up and get ready for a wheel and tire. Alright guys, so the upper control arm is in, the spindle, and the brake caliper. Now it's time to install my favorite part, which is the rotor and the hub, because it looks beautiful. Alright guys, the passenger side is pretty much wrapped up. Got both the control arms on, the coilover, the rotors, and the caliper. And once again, just like the driver's side, it looks freaking amazing. I love the way this thing turns out and the way it looks on the wheel. So pretty much the last thing I'm going to be doing today is taking off that old brake lining and putting on the Wilwood one, that metal braided one. And then I also have to sand off the steering knuckle, paint that, put 2 coats on, and then that can go on. The last thing I really need to do for the passenger side is sand down and paint that steering knuckle. I won't film that this time, I did it last time, and besides, you guys all know what sanding and painting looks like. But that's pretty much gonna do it for today. I'm happy with the progress I made, and hopefully within this week, maybe next week, I can go ahead and get the new tire and wheel fitted onto this side as well. And after I get everything buttoned up for the control arms, the next project for the front end will be installing the Ridetech Muscle Bar, which is the sway bar. So in the next video, that's what we'll be doing. And as always guys, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next time.